So yeah, we can start the Are You With Me Right Now, episode 26,
Yay!
by apologizing for fucking up last week's episode because somehow I misrecorded it somehow. At least we got the second half because, overall it was a good podcast.
It was a really good podcast. That first half is a bummer.
Yep,
It's a bummer that the first half is gone.
Sorry you guys missed it.
We're going to recreate some of it for you, though, because some of it was important.
Yeah. So I guess one of the big questions that I asked was if I needed to stop selling drugs.
My answer has changed a little bit.
What was your answer?
The answer at that time was, I don't like it. Like, if there is one thing I'm going to ask you to stop doing, it is that. But asking, telling you that I want you to stop doing something and you wanting to stop doing something are separate concepts. So I'm not going to tell you what you should be doing and then have you resent me for telling you to do it, basically.
Okay. That was the answer from last week?
Yes.
Yeah.
I am now a little more definitive in that I would like you to stop doing it. I've been thinking about that happening in the house, like while your daughter's here asleep, and I really don't like that. And I don't want that to be a thing with our kids. I just don't like that it happens in the same house. I'm not really a fan. And it's dangerous. We talked last week about you have a really close friend who's been to prison for trafficking drugs, essentially. And I really worry about that with you. I know you don't sell to a whole bunch of people, but I'm not exactly keen on the idea of something happening and then me raising our 8 kids alone and you being in jail. I really don't like the risk of that because it's real.
So what you're saying is we need to change the laws.
Yes, but I can't do that alone.
I mean, yeah, I get it. I guess that's why I asked the question. I don't sell to enough people and I don't sell enough quantity for anybody to... I mean, yeah, I'd get a fine at most. Yeah.
I find that hard to believe that you wouldn't do any time.
I don't think so.
Have you looked at the amounts and stuff?
Yeah. Well, not specifically. But I mean, for less than 2 ounces in Texas is a misdemeanor, thanks to that song.
Oh, that song's hilarious. Don't eat your stash or whatever.
Yeah. And 2 ounces is typically what I have.
Oh, that's what you have total?
Usually. Sometimes more, but not often. Especially not often enough.
Okay.
And when I do, I usually move half of it pretty much immediately.
Let it be known that it really is not it's not the thing that I feel the most comfortable about.
Obviously.
But
and I get that. I mean,
I'm just saying from last week, my stance has become more definitive on I don't really like that it happens in the house with the child. But the point remains that me not wanting you to do something and you wanting to change a habit are very different things.
Yeah, I get that.
And I'm not going to make you do anything. So.
Yeah.
And that's the point of a boundary is, it's my boundary. It's not yours. Sort of thing.
Yeah. And I mean, I just to be super clear, I don't sell to anyone that I don't trust.
I do know that.
Yeah. I mean, it's family and very close friends.
Yeah. I don't know how many friends you sell to. I can only name 3 or 4. It's just something to be careful with. And I really do trust you as someone who's very careful and very meticulous in the things that you do. It is still something risky, and that is just to be said, basically.
What's so strange about it is it's only risky because our government says that it's illegal.
You've had a lot of government feelings this week.
I always do, though.
I know.
But it's just so strange. I mean, I started selling just kind of by accident, just because I know people who have enough of it, for me to buy. And then, I'd have some buddies come and be like, man, I've been buying from this sketchy ass dude down at the train tracks, and I'm kind of tired of feeling like I'm going to get shot every time I want to buy $20 worth of weed. And I'm like, oh, well, here, I got $20 worth. I can get you $20 worth of weed here. And it just kind of grew from that.
Well, aren't you a saint?
I mean, not intentionally,
I'm just
but
being a dick.
I was just helping some friends out, really. And kind of still am. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, it's a source of just constant cash for me. I don't make a ton of profit off of it. But I do always have free drugs for myself, so there's a benefit. That's kind of what it turned into, was like, well, now I sell enough to where I just have free drugs for myself.
Yeah.
Especially at the quantity that I use, which is not often.
That's not much.
Right.
You really don't use much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm responsible and I take care of my responsibilities. And then when I've got time left over, if I feel like using, I do. And I like the fact that now, knowing consciously that I do engage when I use drugs.
You do.
I like that. I mean, that's a benefit of it.
True.
Because our podcast last week, I'd been using like all day.
And I've been getting so much from you basically about your family lately. I want to say we talked about your mom last week.
Probably.
And I'm really mad that doesn't exist anymore.
We did, yeah. We did talk about my mom. I got really upset and I quit talking for a while.
Oh, fuck. What were we talking about?
It was just the discussion.
Oh.
Yeah.
That was a hard discussion.
It was, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was the discussion of like, what if my mom had quit smoking cigarettes, Like, would she still be here? Like, was this a conscious decision to like her, I guess the level of her addiction to cigarettes and how that's affected my family.
Yeah, we were talking about our familial experiences with smoking. I think that came out of the discussion of like, my dad's really violent, alcohol or no alcohol. There was a choice to, the way I put it was, at least in AA, you say, you're not responsible for, you're not at fault, you're not responsible for your addiction, but you are responsible for your recovery and making the choice to maintain your recovery and choose recovery over using. And that's kind of where that came from and where that went. And then that hit so hard because it was, well, then did my mom choose not to stop?
Yeah.
Which sucked.
Yeah. I have a therapist appointment on Wednesday.
Can you talk about it?
I don't know. We'll see.
I hope so. As if that's like my responsibility or my business, but
I don't have my kid. Maybe I'll get high and go.
She might not be able to tell that you're high. Because you're not like weird when you're on drugs. I mean, you're like normally weird, just like me, but you're not like conspicuous. And also, I have a really low radar for being able to tell who's intoxicated. So I might just be wrong.
You can tell because my attitude changes. The words that come out of my mouth are more. I can word harder, I think is what I said.
That is what you said.
So I think my therapist would be like, what's going on? Why are you talking so much?
You just say we had like really good sex before the session.
Yeah.
Dopamine is dopamine.
So I don't know if this got answered. I don't remember getting an answer to this last podcast. Is it appropriate to ask her if I can use and come to therapy? Because my girlfriend says I engage more.
Yeah, the only answer I gave was that my therapist, you wanted me to ask my therapist? I'm like, that's a bad idea because he's just going to say no.
Yeah, and you're like, my therapist is
he's gotten over 20 years in NA. Of course, he's not going to be like, yeah, use drugs for a recreational purpose. Like,
dare to keep your boyfriend off drugs.
Just say no for your boyfriend. I mean, I think it depends on your level of trust with your therapist.
Yeah, I trust her. I mean, I guess, but...
Do you think she would continue to provide you services in a way that's helpful to you? Or would that be like a big weird judgment for her? Because she's just a person.
Yeah. She hasn't judged me for using... Because I'm very open about how often I use and when I use with her and what I use. And at first, she's like, oh, yeah, a lot of people have been studying to use like psilocybin and LSD for therapy. That was her very first.
Really?
Yeah. Like she's aware of the therapeutic benefits of it.
I think that's a pretty clear cracked door. I think it would be kind of safe to ask her. Because if you trust her as your practitioner and like you feel close enough in that, which is the goal, to be able to trust your therapist to ask them questions that make you uncomfortable, basically. And if she sees research benefits, I mean, I would raise it to her. I think you'd be safe in doing that.
And then if she says, yeah, just whip it out and be like,
You just bring a tab with you. I mean,
yeah.
if y'all talked about psilocybin or an LSD, bring some LSD.
Yeah.
I know. I'd probably talk about it for like, hey, next week.
Yeah.
I'd like to try it and see if it makes me more open.
Yeah.
You know, I've gotten feedback from my girlfriend. It's been around me often when I use. And that it makes me really engaging and helps me open up a lot more. And I'm more willing to talk about hard things like my mom.
True.
So I think it's all in how you present it and if you trust her with it.
Okay. So now that was episode 25 and a half. That was episode 25.0 because you've already heard episode 25.5 if you've been keeping up with us.
So I went home to my hometown this past weekend to get my car fixed and also hang out with my best friend whose birthday was a couple weeks ago. And she is married and has a little boy, and I love them all very much. Dude, he's talking so fast. This kid is getting big. I'm like, there are so many more words here than when last I saw you a couple months ago. It's cool.
How old is he?
He's 2. He'll be 3 next April.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So he just turned 2. So he's exploding, and I've known this kid. I was there when he was born.
It's funny watching that. Well, I really just noticed this the other day, how much my kid is really talking now. Like, I mean, it's full-on conversation, like, all the time. And I don't know, it seems like yesterday we had just started having conversation.
Yeah, I noticed that you were reading books to her while we were giving her a bath. And when I babysit for the kid I know who's got Down syndrome, I read really slowly to her because she is really just starting to read and she just turned 9. But I was kind of shocked at like how quickly you were reading and how she was picking up on all of it. She was not lost. She was reading along with you. Your child is impressive in her intelligence and it's really cool. And I think it has so much to do with the ways that you talk to her and the ways that I've learned from you to talk to her.
Yeah, I think so. I treat her like a little person. I mean, she is a little person. It's always bothered the shit out of me when other people are like, oh, I'm going to talk to you like a baby. I'm like, why? Like, babies don't talk like that. You're talking like that.
Dude, yeah. My mom and I were chatting. I just talked about you and the kid the whole time because all I do is talk about y'all anyway. And she was asking about, like, does she get to see her mom? Like, what's kind of the arrangement there? I'm like, oh, we pass her back and forth basically every day. You know, they both see her all the time. And she was like, oh, is that back and forth hard? I'm like, yeah, it's going to be hard at any interval. You know, you saw it was terrible when I was younger. A week sucked. But she was saying, like, so what do you think is going to happen with that? I'm like, well, we're going to ask her what she wants to do. Because she's really even now, she is old enough to give an actual answer about where she wants to be. And she, you know, the planning, it's in like 2 days from now, where do you want to be or next week? That's beyond her because she's small. But she's not stupid.
Yeah.
Not like any kid at 3 is, you know? But you treat her like she's not stupid.
Yeah.
And my mom was saying like, oh, how old is she? I'm like, she's 3. She's old enough to be asked and give answers. And she will have as much influence as either of the parents in her schedule from here on out.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. I mean,
it's very fair. Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, it's still important that both of us see her as much as possible. Yeah. So we're still going to regulate that schedule. But I mean, yeah, when it comes down to some sort of decision, like this past weekend, I kind of wanted to bring my kid to work with me, but I really wanted it to be her decision whether or not to come with me. Because my work, sometimes I'm there for a long time and sometimes she gets bored, but sometimes she likes it. So I wanted to give her that decision whether or not to come. And she wasn't going to come. But then I think the day before, she decided that she did want to come. And in the morning of, I made sure she did still want to come. When I went to go pick her up, she tried to change her mind again and be like, I don't want to go to work now. And we kind of talked her into it at that point because she had already made the decision, you know. So I wasn't really sure what was right in that sense, that she just got cold feet at the very last second because she wanted to stay with her mom. And she knew she was coming to work. But sometimes picking her up from her mom is like that anyway, that, you know, she gets clingy in the moment.
Goodbyes are like that with little kids, as
Yeah.
we well know with this one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's not like she's a fully formed adult who can make full decisions on her own, but she can have a say in where she wants to be. And that's so important because
We ended up having a great time.
I know, that was so sweet. She took pictures with the cast, was telling me she had fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brother and I had zero autonomy in where we lived. It was horrible. I had to pack a suitcase every week. And it was the worst. It was just the worst. So asking her, and, you know, even at age 3, which is pretty insane for most other parents to like give their kid a choice in anything at age 3, which is dumb as fuck. You know, but she's not stupid, and she's not she's not just a stuffed animal that you throw back and forth.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't spend enough time with I don't spend hardly any time with other parents. My old best friend had a kid a month after I did, and immediately we quit hanging out. So I don't really know how he raises his kid. You know, and my dad kind of went through the same thing. His best friends like had a son who I ended up going to school with because we were exactly the same age too. But they kind of fell out with the whole family thing. And dad was busy too. I mean, at that time, because he was working and he was playing, they kind of split until later in life. Until I was maybe a teenager, they started hanging out a lot more again.
And that's fairly normal. When you got kids running around, it's really hard to socialize.
Kind of.
I mean, well, you're able to do it because you don't have your kid half the time. You know,
Well,
I think
but even if I did, like, just taking her to my friend's house and letting the kids play and us having adult time, like, let the kids be kids. I don't know.
That's true. I'm just saying, if you and your ex-wife were together, or if, you know, we were raising a kid together, it'd probably be tougher for us to have, like, social time, because it'd be one of us alone while the other stayed with the kid, or having to get a babysitter or whatever. So I would say it's easier just because you don't have to have full custody. So it probably helps you enjoy your social life, but I don't think your former best friend has much of that going for him.
That's for sure. I mean, yeah. I've had a very, I suppose, a rather unique experience with raising a child.
Yes.
Because it's only been 50% of the time.
You're going to have 100% of the kids I pop out for you, so we're going to try it.
I mean, yeah.
I think for who we are as people, that, you know, when we have kids, we're still probably going to have, like, after the initial fucking newborn stage where everything is crazy and we will need to help each other literally all the time. You know, if our kid's 2, I'll hang out with her. You go see your friends. I'll have a night out later in the week.
Yeah.
Or we'll get a babysitter next week and you and I will hang out. And it's, you know, we're going to live together, obviously. So we're going to do this every night and play video games and stuff. I don't really doubt that we're still going to make social time for ourselves independently and for ourselves together.
Right.
And I say that, you know, not having any kids, but I'd like to try. It's important.
Yeah.
A big reason why I didn't want kids before I met you is I was really afraid, because of my, you know, romantic experiences, that like all the attention just goes to the kids and the marital relationship is just hollow and falls apart because no one gives each other attention. Like, you know, you have to really nurture your romantic relationship separately from having kids. And it's really important that you do. But from what I'd seen anywhere, that was not what was done. I didn't want my relationship to just disappear after I had kids.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's a huge struggle to do that.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll see how it happens. You and I are good at talking to one another. So I'm not worried about it, but I'm interested to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, we'll see. Because I know I don't have no qualms about like being adult with you after the child has gone to bed.
Yeah.
That is not your favorite thing to like do, which is, I understand.
Yeah. Well, and this is such a small house too. I think that's what really bothers me about it. Is that this house is so small. There's not a lot of privacy here.
Fair. And it's not the child that I created, so I don't have like the parental, you know, mindset, instincts, whatever.
That too.
So.
That too, and I do have time to be an adult when she's not around. So there's a lot of uniqueness to this that's not like most people's. Well, that's not like a core, you know, nuclear family.
Yeah, and that
Nuclear.
will probably not apply to our other kids because I'm obviously planning to be with you. Fun positive note, at my last session, my therapist and I were mentioning, or I was mentioning to him that our living situation, like the current plan moving forward, is that we're gonna move in together after I graduate in May. And he was just saying, like, y'all sound like you're really well fitted for each other. Yeah, it was a really smooth sailing week, really on all counts. So it was kind of just a review session of like, yeah, good things are going well. He was saying like that we really communicate well and seem very well suited, which is just nice because I agree. This is just a very easy relationship, even when it's hard. Oh, this all started with another story. I went home this past weekend to do all the things I said earlier. And my best friend and her husband, they're really nice and I love them. And the husband's parents, they live with her husband's parents. And they often let me stay there. And that's where I was on Friday night. It was strange. You know, after a day or so of being around them, you know, anyone starts to bicker. I did not fight with them, obviously, but like as a marital couple, I saw them bickering because they live together and they have a kid. And I was in their space. And it felt so familiar, the ways that they were talking to each other. I had absolutely done that before. But it was really uncomfortable in a different way than watching people squabble has always been really uncomfortable for me. You know, my best friend loves taking pictures. She is Instagram AF. And her husband is really not, much like you and I. I'm not as hardcore as my best friend, and you're not as like hardcore avoidant of pictures as he is. He would kind of laughs or like pokes fun at her when she wants to take pictures or whatever. He'll kind of laugh at the pictures she's taken. And she really doesn't like that, which relatable.
Is he trying to be mean about it? Or is he just trying to laugh about his insecurity about it?
He's just laughing. I mean, he thinks he doesn't understand. It's kind of like you don't understand jewelry.
Yeah.
He doesn't really understand the point. And he just doesn't like them.
Yeah.
He doesn't like taking pictures. So he thinks it's funny.
Yeah.
And he's not being mean. He's not very mature. But I genuinely don't think he's being mean. I think he's just being goofy like we are. Because I call you dumb like every million minutes. Which I've been doing a lot lately. Sorry, I'm trying to stop. But we poke fun at each other really hard. And I think it's just that. But she's insecure about it. Like very much. And he'd done it to her.
Did she used to be like ugly or something? Or
she and I have always been chunky as hell. She's gorgeous though, and she always has been. She's gained a lot of weight since she got pregnant.
Of course.
But
yeah, but she's still pretty.
She's crazy pretty. We were sitting there, we got gelato after dinner, and I'm looking at her, I'm like, your wife is just cute as hell. Like, look how pretty she is. He's like, I know, if only she believed it. And she sat down. I was like, we're just checking you out because you're pretty. And she's like, no, I'm not. And he's like, well, fucking look. Like, see? But point is, he kind of pokes fun at her for taking pictures and selfies and stuff and posting them online. She really gets her feelings hurt about it. And they fight about it.
Your friend's got an issue.
I know. Well, so does he. Because
sure,
a relationship is two ways on everything.
Yeah, it is. But the fact that she wants to take all these selfies is very like, hey, I need attention. Look at me. Please, somebody tell me I'm pretty kind of thing. But then her husband tells her that she's pretty and she's like very like disagreeable.
I guess I don't have a lot of feelings about like, oh, you post on Instagram a lot, so you really need attention. I don't know.
I mean, that's what it is.
I guess. I'll give you that. But she's been through some trauma just like me, like serious family shit.
Right.
But the thing is, so she really gets her feelings hurt about it. And he doesn't stop or like apologize. And she doesn't, you know, she holds it. She holds on to it, which relatable. This is literally what I've done forever. This is very familiar. But this happened a couple times when I was there that she was saying like, why do you always make fun of me for this? You know, you laugh at me. You think this is stupid. And he kind of doesn't back down. Like he's still basically laughing at her. I mean, what else do you do? You're fighting. It was just very strange to watch that argument from the outside. And it was strange how weird it was for me because that has been very, very normal for all of my life. And that's how I used to handle conflict. was not handling conflict and not understanding that there was any deeper layer than I feel like you're victimizing me right now or you're being mean to me. And that's that. So stop. There was no understanding of, hey, I don't, when you say that, I feel really insecure. Like it makes me feel like I'm not close to you. When we take pictures together, it makes me feel like, or I feel like you care about me, that we're doing things together. And it's an intimate way for me to express that I love you or to feel loved by you. That's what she's feeling. But neither of them are getting that, he probably doesn't like pictures. Maybe he doesn't like how he looks or he just doesn't get the point. But they're not saying any of those things to each other. And so it's just fighting about the behavior and they're not like understanding. And it's really hard to be around fights that aren't about the real issue. Because it's not like I don't fight like a bitch because I super do. We know this. But it's about the real meaning behind something. And I think I'm just really sensitive to this because I've got a couple other friends who are just, their behavioral patterns are fucking ridiculous to watch because you can see the pattern. One is adamantly denying she is borderline. She definitely is borderline or is close enough that I can like sense her.
Is this your new friend?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, another one, it's just watching people make decisions that are so obviously, to me, part of the problem is really difficult to watch and it's frustrating. So I'm having a really hard time being close to her, my new friend, and I have a really hard time being around fights like that. And it kind of makes me sad that they fight like that because it really doesn't have to be that way. And it's just miserable, to feel like your significant other is attacking you or thinks you're dumb or whatever. And she's hitting therapy pretty hard, so it's not like she's not, working on herself.
Sounds like they need to go together, though.
Yes. I think they have before. I know they have before. I don't think they are still.
Mm-hmm.
And it just made me really grateful that we communicate in a real way because just being around their 5-minute argument was insanely stressful and it didn't solve anything and it just made them hurt.
Yeah, I think even before therapy, I think I've always been a pretty good communicator. I mean, I'll be intentionally crass sometimes because I think it's funny, but sometimes also just to get a quick point across. And I mean, sometimes I'll try to be, humorous about things. I'll poke fun at people because there is a message in that. I don't know. I mean, I've been accused of being an asshole a lot by a lot of people, but there aren't a lot of people who really dislike me. I don't have a lot of enemies, I guess, is what I mean by that.
I agree with that. I don't know. And despite my serious talent with words and love of words, I have been a really horrible communicator because I haven't had a lot of insight in my life.
Mm.
I mean, I do now, but I haven't always been that way. I think I've always had the capacity and I've really been searching for it, but I didn't know what I was looking for and didn't know what I was supposed to be learning. And my therapist was just talking to me like, not everybody is there. It's not like just because you want someone to get it doesn't mean they're ready to. And not everyone has the insight necessary right now. It's a skill that you acquire, but it's not my job to make sure it's someone else's time to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
I think most of my fortune comes from, and I call it fortune, but it comes from my relationship with my ex-wife. I don't know. There were a lot of healthy qualities to it.
Such as?
I guess our communication, the way that we got along with one another. I talked about this with my therapist last session, and it's really hard I find it hard to describe the way that my ex-wife and I communicate because we've always been really sensitive to like each other's feelings, I guess. Neither of us has ever intentionally hurt the other person emotionally or whatever. I don't know. I guess.
I find that very hard to believe.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
The things that y'all have done to each other. Like the emotional hurt that has been caused by each of you is really, that's a very high level of emotional pain. I'm very surprised.
Yeah, but that's, I don't know, somehow I categorize that differently.
Why?
I don't know. Explain what you know about the ways that we've hurt each other.
Basically just y'all leaving each other in various ways. Because you both have. I'm not even just shitting on you. I mean, both of you have left the relationship while staying in it multiple times for multiple years.
Yeah.
if that wasn't intentional, what was it? I mean, y'all had to know what you were doing.
Probably.
As in, like, having a side relationship or emotionally leaving the relationship. Like, you had to know what you were doing.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not true.
I mean, there was still a lot of comfort in, like, coming home to her, I guess. Just from me personally speaking. I can't speak for her in the ways that she checked out.
Why?
The comfort?
I don't know anything about her. So
I think it's just the relationship that we had. I mean, I did really enjoyed the relationship that we had. I mean, my side relationships were almost exclusively sexual. There wasn't really like any sort of like courting component to it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But that's very strange because it's not to say that my sexual relationship with my ex-wife was anything lacking. So I can't necessarily say that I was looking for something I wasn't getting.
So that's always where I get lost in this.
Same. My therapist thinks it's just the adventure component in finding something new and shiny.
You said like you found a lot of comfort in the relationship you do have. What were y'all even like together, like socially? Because I know the bad parts of how you were socially and how you really didn't connect socially in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But how did y'all get along?
I really, I like to go out and sit in a bar and drink and just chill. And most of the time, just chat with the bartender. That's really what I like doing. And if I run into other friends, they're great. But sometimes, if it's just me and the bartender's busy and I'm just staring at the cooler in front of me, that's fine too. I just like the environment. Something about sitting in a dive bar, I just find very comfortable. I feel like I belong there. Maybe it's because I've put myself there so often, going to shows and...
You worked in those environments, at least part of the time.
Yeah, I found comfort there before I started working there, though.
Okay.
I mean, I was a staple. I mean, I was like, this is how the owner of the bar and I became such good friends, is because...
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I was there...
Really?
4 or 5 nights a week.
Cool.
Yeah. And that's how we just kind of got close, because we liked the same music a lot. We really had a similar taste in music. She didn't like that because she's got a high level of social anxiety. She just doesn't like a lot of people. And it was difficult for her to keep up with me in a situation like that because I was there so much. I mean, I might as well have been a piece of furniture in the place. I mean, because everybody knew me and I was talking to everybody. I had a lot of friends in that environment. So when she'd come along, she definitely didn't want to do it as often as I did. So when she would come along, she found it difficult to like relate to each individual like relationship I would have with each individual person or group of people, because she wasn't there enough to be ingrained in it. So it was kind of like, she felt like an outsider a lot, I think. And I think that's kind of what drove her to just kind of quit going altogether.
I definitely can see that.
What do you do about that? Nothing?
You stop dating each other because you're not a good fit socially. And then you don't date each other 15 more times.
Yeah.
I don't really know shit about your ex-wife except that she doesn't talk and is not well liked really by anyone that she knows. Just not surprising to me. But she seems like an extreme introvert. And obviously there is social contact between you and her when you were dating, like one-on-one. Y'all related in some form or fashion. And that is kind of what I was asking earlier, is like, how did y'all relate to each other? Which, hang on. But she sounds... I don't know if there's a way to get around like that serious of a mismatch in activity preferences. Or just in personality. Because I like going to the bars with you, and I do that whenever I can. But some nights, not often, but some nights I'll be like, you know what? No, I would really like to sit home and paint, or I want to play my DS, and it's bath time. So you go out, and I'll see you in a couple hours. Like, you go hang out with your friends. I'm just not in the mood. But that's not the majority.
I guess just to add to that, it's a lot easier for you to connect to people and relate to people. You're a much more welcoming individual than she is.
That friend that I made, your friend who has my same name, is my best friend. She is now my favorite person. But yeah, I just sat down and started talking to her, and she was crazy nice.
Yeah.
And I always go home after a couple hours because I only need a couple drinks. And also, like, I don't know, being out for too long starts to mess with my head. There was obviously a very serious mismatch between y'all's preferred activities and your social styles that just didn't overlap. And I don't think there would have been a way to get around that, really.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of got her. So, I don't know. To try and unpack, one of the very first things I remember having an intimate moment with her, we were sitting at a church, which was like across the street from my ex-girlfriend's house. The girl that I was dating at the time was her best friend. And we were sitting at the church. I don't even know if my girlfriend was there. I think we would sometimes just hang out at her house, even if she wasn't there, because I was dating her and she was best friends with her, and her other family was there. Her mom might have been there. Her sister might have been there. Who knows? And somehow we just ended up kind of across the street, just chilling by ourselves. My girlfriend may have been there, and the girl was probably taking a nap. That girl napped more than anybody I ever met in my life.
Goals.
She would sleep all day long every day. So I would end up hanging out with her twin sister a lot. I would end up hanging out with her best friend a lot. I mean, I would end up I took my GameCube over there. I ended up just playing video games by myself a lot. But I'd still, spend time at her house and stuff. And sometimes her other friends would come over and, I'd just hang out with them. I got really, really close with that whole friend group. So yeah, one time we just ended up at a church across the street and just kind of sitting on a bench, and we just kind of started talking about religion, I guess. And I don't know. I think in that moment she got kind of inspired by what I was saying about religion. I don't think she'd ever really thought about it. I was really figuring stuff out for myself too, trying to figure out like, okay, maybe there is some sort of creation kind of thing, but blah, blah, blah. I don't know, not really going into that because I don't remember my 18-year-old self and my religious beliefs. So that's one of the first moments I, really have with her. We would spend a lot of time together. My girlfriend would go out of town and we'd hang out. She lived where her dad lives now, way out there. I'd go and pick her up and bring her back to my house, and we'd sit in my bedroom and I'd just play video games. And she would just watch me play video games, and we'd kind of just hang out. And I think she didn't really have anything better to do at her house. And by that time, see, at first, I didn't really like her. She was kind of a bitch.
Relatable.
But the more we hung out, like, she just wasn't like that to me. But I've said this about a lot of people now. Now, since this, like my last major ex-girlfriend, not the BPD one, but the major relationship that I had, she was a total bitch to like everybody that she met, but she did not treat me that way. Like I could see her doing it to other people. Eventually she started to do it to me, and I was like, that's when I really checked out, I think. Other than getting back into a relationship with my ex-wife again.
And not wanting to talk about living with her.
Well, that was sort of separate from the situation. I think by that point she had started trying to, like, we had a couple of bad fights by then. Just a couple, one or two, where we just...
Hashtag same.
Yeah, I mean, like, these were like yelling arguments. Like, she would really drive me to the point where I was just like, yell.
I would never like to hear you yell.
You probably wouldn't. You wouldn't push me there.
That's what I mean. Like, if either of us gets to the point where we are screaming at each other, like, that is somewhere I never want to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I never wanted to be that where with her either.
I know
it. I mean, this girl had serious parental issues. I don't know. I mean, a lot of our early time together was just me playing video games, and she'd sit and watch, and she kind of enjoyed it because, there were really story-heavy games.
And I like watching people play video games, so I really relate to that.
Yeah.
It's a nice way to share time.
I mean, that kind of evolved into just us sleeping together, I guess. Because I became more intimately attracted to her than I did my girlfriend. Because my girlfriend was just sleeping all the time. She would just nap.
Doesn't that sound familiar to your ex-wife?
Yeah, does.
That's really ironic.
My therapist blames it on the adventure seeker in me, and that's certainly there. I agree with that. Not just in like a relationship sort of capacity.
So yeah, we talked about that a couple episodes ago.
Yeah. There is sort of an adventure component to the way that I like to live. I like to say yes to new opportunities because I've had a lot of success in just following somebody somewhere. Like, hey, do you want to do this? Yeah, let's do that.
And that's really where our first fight, like our big fight, our, I guess, really only big fight dug in, is that I have had horrible failures in saying yes. And you have had very opposite experiences. And so I'm quick to say no, often in self-protection or for, to drugs, essentially.
Sure.
Is what that first argument was, is that I've had really horrible experiences. Your life has been the opposite. And that saying yes has yielded really interesting and fruitful results.
Yeah, just fulfilling experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we split up because my girlfriend found out that we were sleeping together. And I thought the right thing to do was to let that go and try and be with my girlfriend because she still seemed kind of interested in making a
For
relationship.
whatever fucking reason. I
don't know.
feel bad for people who, if you're not married, why are you sticking around?
Yeah.
The bare minimum is not being cheated on.
Yeah.
That is just the absolute floor of what you should expect from anyone. And I feel very bad for people, including myself a couple of years ago, who feel like you have to stay or have any interest in after you've been cheated on. And maybe that's why I judge your ex-wife really hard. Part of it.
It could be because, I mean, I don't know. For certain, I feel like she ended up enabling a lot of my behavior. And I think that's probably why it really kind of got out of control for a while. Is because why would it matter? She's going to stay with me either way, so.
I mean, yeah, it sounds like a relationship with an addiction. I know it was not like a drug addiction or anything, but that is absolutely what dating or like being heavily involved with someone who uses drugs in an addictive way is.
I mean, I was probably having sex in an addictive way there for a while.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, so yeah, it's not like you were getting anything. I mean, no, you were getting good things out of it, but I would say the consequences were pretty bad. But then they weren't.
Right.
You didn't have, I don't know. That's getting confusing, but I
So,
would say there's an addiction component then. That's an interesting way to look at it.
could be. So I don't know if I answered your question. How did she and I interact? I mean, once we got together, we did have a couple of good years there living together. We just hung out. We had a lot of friends over a lot, though. Like, I'd have friends over all the time. And we all got along with those friends. I'd go out to the bar a good bit, but for a long time on the weekends, we'd have, like, parties a lot. I mean, I threw a lot of parties at that house before and during her. And just having friends over and stuff. So that made it easier to have a social component with her and for her to feel included in everything.
Because she knew all the people that were okay. I was going to say, how much did she hate that?
Right.
But they were her friends.
Yeah. Yeah. No, she enjoyed it for the most part. Yeah.
I think really, I mean, you did, considering what we have just said and what you've just answered, because you did just give a lot of information. I think my original question really boiled down to what did she contribute to y'all? Because I don't know, like
to the relationship or to the
to y'all's interpersonal, like intimate relation to each other. Like, what did she give to that? I genuinely am not trying to be a dick. Like, I just don't know.
I mean, she was my best friend for a long time. We were really intimately close. I mean, in the way that you and I are, on a strictly interpersonal level, not in any sort of functional way, not in any sort of like practical keeping the house clean, that sort of like family sort of way, I guess.
Okay, so like y'all knew each other really well, basically.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And I ask what she contributed because all the stories I just heard of her were very passive on her part. I don't know, because when I think about us talking, there's a lot of engagement on both sides, especially if you're intoxicated, and that we have a very full back and forth. I don't know, and I feel like we both really balance each other with like our picking on each other or, checks and balances because we do shit on each other a little bit. Or like I feel like we keep each other in check. Because when you sit me down with a worksheet, sometimes you're like, we can't do that. Please do a worksheet. Or, I've had to pull you in place when you've said like, oh yeah, my ex-wife ruined my relationship. Like, oh no, you made that choice. I think we give each other reality checks and that I feel like we're balanced. And the stories I've just heard about her seem very one-sided in that like you were talking or you were giving the information sort of thing. And she was just kind of there. She seems very passive.
Yeah. Which is fine for me because I'm very controlling anyway. Not controlling.
LOL.
Is controlling a good word?
I can't think of a synonym, so yeah.
I don't think controlling is a good word. I don't know. I like to be in charge, I guess.
That is what I was going to say.
Yeah. Controlling makes it sound like I'm going to tell you what to do. Like, I don't care what you do. I'm going to do what I'm going to do, though. Kind of thing.
I mean, yeah, you like things your way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just how I've always been. I've just always been that way.
And I guess she didn't really provide much opposition to that.
Not really. Mm-mm.
At least not in your like interrelational whatever life.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes a little more sense to me.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to conceptualize y'all having some sort of meaningful back and forth because she really is just a massive bitch to apparently anyone who's not you. So I have a very hard time actually imagining her being anyone pleasant to talk to or having something meaningful to say. Like, it really deeply surprises me that we have a lot of the same interests.
You and my ex-wife. You
Yeah.
do have a lot
Oh,
of
yeah,
the
I'm
same
sorry.
interests.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could, like, I literally made you a playlist of music that she liked because if you didn't know that she liked it,
I would like
it'd
it.
probably be your favorite music ever. Yeah.
And there's some in common already. Let's just get that straight. But it's not like whatever. It's not like I'm learning from her.
What do you mean?
It's not like I would have been like, oh my God, this is the best music ever that I'm learning from her.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just
no,
petty
right.
and dumb. All right.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah. There are a lot of parallels there with the things
Yeah.
that both of you like. It's
Yeah.
just I don't know, pop culture interest wise.
Which just I find strange. I don't really see any parallels between her and me beyond those interests. So I do not know what she's like person to person. And I don't know anything about her, and she seems like a dick.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't see anything redeeming about her except she created the tiny human that I love most in the world.
Yeah. Both of her parents were super hippies. Pretty lazy people. I mean, nice people. They mean well. They do a lot of family stuff. They were always about like, hey, let's take a family trip up to the mountains kind of thing.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, even down to like the movies that you guys like. It's uncanny sometimes.
What movies does she like?
Juno is one of her favorite movies.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that why you won't watch it with me?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
It's just strange. You both have a quirky kind of sense of humor, I guess. It's not a bad thing. It's what I'm attracted to. So that's probably most of the reason why you're here is that not that you remind me of her, just
I
that,
was going to say, careful.
no, not that you remind me of her at all. You really don't remind me of her.
Thank you.
You just have similar interests, very similar interests. And it is strange because you have very different upbringings because she's very much lower middle class, if that. I mean, she grew up in trailers her whole life. I think it's a little crazier to me how you ended up the way that you are. Most of her interests are very much like kind of hippie-ish and well, yeah, I mean, both of your interests are kind of the same. But I see the place where she came from to get there. I don't see the place where you came from to get there, but
I understand what you're saying.
yeah, thanks.
I don't think I match a lot of where I came from. And you've not been there. But
Right.
it's very different. It is not my place, really.
Right. Like, I guess, I don't know, where did you first hear Bright Eyes? Like, where did Bright Eyes come from?
I was sad and went on YouTube.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
I found Bright Eyes myself. And I've never been someone who goes through like album after album after album and really like digs into the artist, except for Death Cab.
Yeah.
And Coldplay. They were tied like my absolute all-time favorites in high school. But I found Imogen Heap and a little bit of Bright Eyes and City in Color and like Ellie Goulding and stuff through my friend. And we would just dig through YouTube and I was depressed as fuck. So I would listen to this music all the time.
She went through a lot of depression.
Very much. She shows it differently than I do, but yes.
Yeah.
She's never quite as despondent as I am.
Despondent. Can
Clarification?
you define that? Can you use it in a sentence?
I should be asking you that. Yeah, so despondent is like, it's kind of what you would picture major depression to be, which is not get out of bed sort of thing. And there was a period of about, I've told you this, 9 months or so, really an entire school year, where I just didn't have any facial expressions. I didn't talk, I didn't laugh, I didn't smile. And, I was just wiped clean. That's what despondent is just
Okay.
blank faced. I just smacked the thing.
She, yeah.
And she's not that way.
She is.
I disagree in the ways that I know her.
Okay. She's probably not that depressed anymore.
Probably not, but I mean, persistent depression comes from persistent depressive disorder is what I've got. And that's when depression is just kind of your normal. It's lasted for at least 2 years. 1 year in adolescence, but 2 years overall, I guess. Where just being low is your normal. Having persistent suicidal thoughts is just your norm. So I'd say she operates on a pretty constant level of depression, but I don't think she's ever been in like major depression like I have.
I disagree.
Wait, so your ex-wife has gone through actual things that made her sad? Because you've definitely told or like presented it to me that she would just like fake depression or just be depressed about nothing, which is a whole thing in itself. But like, oh, what'd she have to be depressed about, you know?
Right. I don't know. Honestly,
What
I think a lot of her depression came from trying to love me while I was trying to get away.
I would definitely imagine that's true. But whatever. But like, where does the need to stay come from? Where does the need to perpetuate that depression come from? Because that's not just having depression. Sticking with someone over and over and over who does not love you in a way that like is supportive. Y'all did not love each other in any functional way. I want to make that clear. Like, I'm sure you had a lot of really deep love and care for each other, but you didn't function. And it wasn't healthy. Overall, what I know, which is way less than you do, so I could be talking out of my ass, but I don't think so. You don't cheat on someone every 2 years. If you love them in a functional and real way. You don't disengage from every activity your partner wants to do because you feel left out. Real love is making yourself a part of their life and making an effort. I don't think either of y'all really had any functional love for each other. I think you really wanted things to work. And then when they didn't, like, then what? I think it was very idealized, which sucks. You know, I'm not trying to be an asshole, but like that sucks. And that's hard to be in. But why didn't either of you go anywhere from each other? Why did you come back? Why did she come back? Where is the real root of why she stayed? Because, yeah, she was really fucking depressed, I'm sure. Because that sounds horrible. Like, I'm sorry, I love you, but that sounds fucking horrible.
Fair enough.
On both sides. And she was just as much a party to it. But there's an underlying cause for that. It's not just, I was sad, so I stayed. Where did she learn to believe that was acceptable? And that she wanted that?
I can't answer that for her.
There had to be something, though. And I mean, relatable. I've been in relationships like that where you want it to work, so you stay. And you would go back if they asked you, or I would go back if they asked me to. But they didn't, of course. Because avoidance. But I know where that comes from. For me.
Yeah. I mean, I'd never really been in, of course I've had a lot of relationships with a lot of people now. But I've never had, and you're not a part of this discussion. I've never had anyone, I guess, love me the way that she did.
Thank you for specifying.
This is just a conversation I would have with myself or maybe with other people, who knows, before you came along for sure. Mm-hmm. Just the way, and this is kind of what I was trying to get at earlier too, the way that she and I just treated each other normally, under normal circumstances, when I wasn't being chronically avoidant and she wasn't being chronically depressed.
And chronically avoidant.
And yeah, probably avoidant. I mean, and even like even today, now less so than usual, but like we don't really go out of our way to like hurt one another or like to disparage one another or anything like that.
Less so than usual?
Yeah, there's been times where we've really been pissed at each other since our divorce. The best way I can describe it is we seem to have some level of respect for one another, some sort of mutual respect for one another, and that we really try not to. We really try and, but it's not even like a struggle to really get along with her. We just get along. Like a lot of people are really surprised, like, wow, you get along really well with your ex-wife. And it's like, it's not really, it's very natural. We naturally just mesh socially. Like you and I do. You and I really do the same thing. We very naturally mesh together. We've had our little arguments over things, but you just mentioned like your best friend and her husband, the way that they speak to each other is that's very normal though, right? The way that they speak to each other, the way they fight with one another.
Yeah, well, in my experience, I don't know if that's actually normal or not.
Seems to be. I mean, you listen to any sort of like, you know, couples self-help and it's always communication. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. And personally, I know I've found a lot of value in that. In the fact that getting along with her is not a struggle. There's been a lot of relationships where I've just sat down and I've told myself, and I'm like, look, if I have to try this hard to get along with this person, fuck this person. Like, I don't have to do this. I have another example, I have this example of my ex-wife or my ex-girlfriend or whoever she was at the time, or my girlfriend, that I don't have to put up with this person's just demeanor. So that was a lot of our relationship, I think, was just our natural propensity to get along. Because I think there's something to be said about that. There's value in that for sure. I don't know.
I'm nodding.
Yeah.
Because that does have a lot of value to it. I guess who taught you guys that was enough for a relationship though?
I don't know. That wasn't it though. I mean,
I know. It's just interesting. It seemed like really both of y'all, there were things that you both enjoyed, but it was the minimum. That the extra stuff wasn't there.
Trying to really decode this from just my angle may be impossible.
That's fine. It's also not my job, so maybe I should stop.
No, not really. I mean, it's not necessarily not your job. I'm not trying to turn you into my therapist.
I turn myself into everyone's therapist anyway.
I mean, whatever.
And I mean, it's not like I have a lot of interest in talking about her anyway, because I obviously don't like her.
Yeah. And I don't blame you. I see why you don't like her. I get that.
I'm really glad you get that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not just some psycho who's mean for no reason. I'm not even mean to her. I just think, whatever. We've covered this. I'm just saying, I think this conversation had a lot of value for me. I think it was just, a concentrated version of just trying to understand has been an interesting topic for me. And for you, I've enjoyed hearing you talk about it. It's not like I want to do this next episode. I'm definitely not going to ask you about her again for quite a while.
Sure.
It's hard to imagine her place in your life for many reasons. It's funny. It was funny. Earlier today, we were having sex and you were like, oh yeah, do you want to do this? I noticed you have this object at your house. And you were joking, but you were being a little, you've done that before. I'm like, what's wrong? He said, you've had sex before I met you. And that's how I was early. Is you've had girlfriends before me. How dare you?
Yeah. Yeah, you've got clothespins sitting in your drawer.
Yeah,
in your sex drawer.
You're welcome.
And you threw away my condoms, but you still have condoms in your drawer.
Do I?
Yeah.
I'll throw them away. I literally didn't know they were in
your
there.
reaction. That's funny.
What?
You're like, oh my God. Ah.
I'm sorry.
No, it wasn't like that. I'm just
I know. It's
picking on you.
Fair, though. I think it actually should be time to clean that out because I don't use any of that shit anymore. Thank you for the reminder. I threw out your condoms. You're welcome. I have an IUD. All right. I mean, I've been that way of oh, you had girlfriends before me. It's hard to hear about.
Yeah.
For either of us.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand her and y'all's relationship. I'm closer now, but I just don't get it.
I don't know. It's probably easier to ask one of my friends and get an outside perspective on it.
Fair enough. I don't know. And then there's the extra element of there are a lot of things that I don't know you to do now that you have done with her.
Yeah.
And I know nothing about her to base any of this on for her. So it's the extra element of this is really hard to hear about. And I can't picture you doing any of those things now. It's you feel like a different person than what I'm hearing about. It's hard to integrate what I'm hearing for both of you, what I know about both of you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like a different person depending on who I have a relationship with. There's different things I'll do with different people. Does that make any sense?
Yes. I was going to say me too, which kind of points to a bit of identity confusion.
I don't feel confused about it.
That's fair. I've definitely gotten interests from boyfriends and then dropped them when I've broken up. I haven't read Stephen King in quite a while. I would like to, but it's not a serious component of my life anymore. I still want to. I miss having time to read that and the access to the books. But every boyfriend I've had has been has seriously impacted my interests and activities.
Sorry, I used to have a bunch of them sitting up on that bookshelf. I might have sold them.
I thought you heard.
They might be up in the attic. Who knows? There's a bunch of Stephen King books somewhere. They were my mom's.
Do you mind if I read them?
Yeah, if they exist, if we can find them.
Okay.
That's about all.
Peace out.
Peace out.